Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Teachers take strike action as Finance Ministry has yet to work out compensation anomalies and discrepancies. JAS calls for Agriculture Ministry to do more to reduce food import bill. And later in sports, under-20 reggae girls faced with revised schedule at CONCACAF Championship. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. Another major disruption in the education sector. This as teachers have started a series of protest action over what they describe as disregard by the government. It stems from ongoing salary issues following the recent compensation review exercise. More in this report from Karen Simpson.
Enough is enough. That assertion from President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Lasagna Harrison, urging educators to take a stand to register their displeasure. It comes as the teachers grow impatient with the government's failure to resolve anomalies with their salaries, including incorrect and late payments.
The President's Education Week message ignited public discussions, resulted in a meeting called by the Minister of Education and Youth with the JTA and the Transformation Implementation Unit representatives on May 12, 2023. Discrepancies were discussed, but anomalies were again referred to the Ministry of Finance and Public Service to be treated with. Another letter was penned outlining same and dispatched on May 17, 2023 to Honorable Minister Clark. To date, no response.
Mrs. Harrison says a special meeting was then called and a letter sent to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security a week later. However, to date, no response.
A press conference to again outline our plight. This was done on May 22, 2023. Should there be no response, our next course of action outlined therein is that of industrial action.
And so classes were disrupted on Thursday, with more strike action and disruptions expected in the following days to urge the government to pay teachers the agreed sums. The JTA president says payments received on Wednesday for May salaries were still not reflecting a correction of the anomalies and discrepancies.
Colleagues, it is time to act. Teachers of Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Catherine, Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Thomas, we will register our displeasure via industrial action on May 25 and 26, 2023. We are professionals and the government need to respond to us in like manner.
In the meantime, the JTA is urging the government to establish the technical committee it had announced to correct the anomalies in salaries paid to teachers. Karen Simpson for TVJ News.
And the teachers' protest action, which started today, has already been impacting students, parents and principals in some parishes.
There were mixed responses from school administrators and parents as teachers in the parishes listed by the JTA for protest action stayed off the job. In St. Thomas, several schools recorded significant fall-offs in attendance. Hensel Mackenzie is acting principal at the Yallas Primary School.
Today, we have a turnout of 15% staff, and I'm seeing 20% students attendance. I'm here monitoring the situation. Being in my position, for me, it's business as usual.
It was no different at the Yallas High School.
Today, we have decided to now place the students in their respective classes and try as best as is possible to treat with those matters.
Mr. Malabva says the situation forced him to dismiss school at 11 a.m. Teachers in St. Elizabeth also stayed off the job in protest as locked gates greeted parents at several schools in that parish.
It's very, I don't know, because imagine we as parents took the time out to bring our children to school. Only if you know that teachers are few in numbers, some students are not there, no information to say, oh, no school tomorrow or the other day. It's not looking good.
When I came at the gate, the security told me that the principal came and made a strict order that no parents is supposed to come on the school compound.
So
because they're having a strike.
So how you feel about that? What does it do for you?
Well, I feel a bit disappointed because I don't think children should be deprived of their education.
Despite their disappointment, however, they say they understand the teachers' frustration.
Teachers have to talk out. We as the parents do not know why or what's happening. They are the ones who should talk out to we as the parents to say what is going on and why they're on strike.
The protest is expected to continue on Friday. Some principals who were surprised by Thursday's strike say they are unsure of how to proceed if the protest continues. Herman Green, TVJ News.
The Jamaica Agricultural Society, JAS, has reacted to the announcement of Floyd Green returning to the agriculture portfolio. However, the agricultural body says Mr. Green has to hit the ground running as there are issues within the sector that need to be addressed urgently. High on the agenda is the country's food import bill. More in this report. For 2022, Jamaica saw its highest trade deficit since 2008. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, the country's negative trade balance amounted to $5.8 billion last year. It's one of the issues the JAS says must be addressed immediately by the Agriculture Minister Floyd Green, who was on Monday returned to the post. President of the JAS, Lenworth Fulton, believes a policy platform should be established to guide what is imported.
The other day, Lisa Hanna, in her presentation, said Michael Manley's version of eat what you grow what you eat is primitive and should be thrown through the window. What Lisa Hanna has said, we shouldn't eat our food that we grow. We should import the food. And while I recognize that import policy exists in the Caribbean, in the smaller island, they have that policy because they don't have any land to grow anything, and most of their island is sand anyway. So you can't import that and say we should just import. We have been seeing a growth in Jamaica with the fast food industry. Most of that is straight import. I think they should settle with that.
He's also calling for greater synergies between the agriculture and tourism ministries.
I need him to work with Ed Bartlett to ensure that any new tourism or hotel coming into Jamaica must live by some legislation to use the food we have here first before you think about importation.
In the meantime, he says a national nutritional program for the country's ruminant industry is needed.
They are all over looking cattle in Wisconsin, taking goats here. But if you don't set a nutrition program for these animals that we afford, it is to no avail. And what we afford is to plant high quality, high protein grass and let these ruminants go back to pasture. And out of that program, you will get a resurgence of the beef, dairy, and small ruminant subsectors.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. The Health Ministry is calling on the World Health Organization to prioritize universal health coverage. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton made the call at the WHO Health Assembly in Switzerland. More in this report.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the growing crisis of NCDs, including mental health problems, the worrying trend of low immunization take-up, inadequate healthcare financing, the need to digitize health systems for resilience, and the imperative of pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response continues to be a challenge.
Together, these and other public health challenges make the prioritization of universal health coverage essential, including in developing countries whose populations are faced with particular vulnerabilities, and in the context of a triple planetary crisis, notably climate change, pollution, and nature loss.
He says despite the challenges, Jamaica will not pull back but adopt the health in all and life course approaches while implementing policies and programs that answer the population's health needs.
Our efforts include primary healthcare reform, the digitization of our health system, physical infrastructure upgrades, and attention to our human resources for health.
The health minister says Jamaica is committed to working to achieve the triple billion targets, prioritizing the strengthening of primary health care and to strengthening core capacities under the international health regulations.
We are also committed to working with the working group on the amendments to the IHR and the negotiations on a new pandemic treaty. We ask, however, that the Director General intervenes on behalf of small island developing states to ensure there is adequate time to make contributions, bearing in mind our limited resources.
He was speaking at the World Health Organization's 75th Health Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland. Carrie Simpson for TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
The earnings of Dermont Trading Group fell to $53 million in the first quarter, which ended in March this year. The performance, it noted, reflects costs to operate the expanding business. The company reported a 120% drop in earnings for the first quarter compared with a similar period in 2022. However, it saw growth in revenues of 16% to nearly $5 billion. The company's executive chairman, Derek Cottrell, says the increase is mainly due to the impact of consolidating its new subsidiary, Arosa Limited, along with the build-out of a new select grocer store in Clarendon. Further afield, the U.S. Commerce Department will be revising the first quarter gross domestic product increase to 1.3%. That's up from the estimated 1.1% it reported last month. GDP is the broadest measure of the U.S. economy. The news comes a week before the Treasury Department estimates the U.S. could default if Congress fails to raise the debt ceiling. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, says it has teamed up with the Global Partnership for Education, GPE, to transform education in Latin America and the Caribbean. It said as part of this initiative, the two institutions have approved a total of $20 million in financing to support the Skills for the Future program in Belize. The program seeks to accelerate foundational learning, bridge the skills gap, prepare students for a changing job market, close gender gaps, and promote inclusive education. On the international scene, the most wanted fugitive in the Rwandan genocide of 1994 has been arrested in South Africa after decades on the run. Fulgence Kayishema is accused of orchestrating the killing of more than 2,000 Tutsi refugees, women, men, children, and the elderly. He has been on the run since 2001. He was captured Wednesday in a joint operation between the South African authorities and UN investigators. And 3 people were killed, including 2 police officers, in a shooting and stabbing attack in central Japan on Thursday. Reports are that the police responded to a call that a man had stabbed a woman. When officers rushed to the scene, the man opened fire, hitting 4 people before fleeing the scene and barricading himself into a building. The police were still searching for him hours later. The woman was taken to hospital where she was subsequently pronounced dead. 2 officers also died from injuries, while the 4th person is being treated at hospital. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Karen Madden will have your midday sports report. And that's the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, have a good afternoon.